G'day, welcome to Charlieville. This is the kick-off point for our trip around Outback Queensland. Charlieville's about 750 k's northwest of Brisbane. It's a good day's drive to get here, but it's really well worthwhile. This is a vast country out here, and Charlieville is a terrific place to start any trip. The beaut thing about it is that the whole town is just loaded with history. The pubs, the buildings, everything else, you know. This is just a fantastic place to start a trip, it really is. Now this trip's going to be a little bit different to some of our others because both my trucks are off the road. So to get around that, I had to hire one. I've been wanting to hire a truck for ages, as much as anything to see the look on the weasel's face when he gets the invoice. You beauty. No, it's not really so much about that. It's about showing people that you don't necessarily have to have your own four-wheel drive running to get out and have a good old break in the outback. In fact, these days, with the price of fuel and the distances we have to travel in Australia, sometimes it makes an awful lot of sense to fly into a place and hire a truck and have a good look around. So this trip's going to be done very quickly. That's okay. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to see some great country. Come along and have a look. Tell you what, you don't get to be built like this without buying plenty of food. But that's the trick out here, especially in the Channel country. You want to make sure you've got enough tucker in the truck and water and fuel to last 2 or 3 extra days, because you never know, it could rain, you could get stuck somewhere. Oh boy, can't get much better than that really, can it? First stop for us was Quilpie, the old opal mining town. Yes, it brought back a few memories of my past.
Where are you, Roothy?
Oh, hi girls. No, sorry, I was just having a bit of a dream. I'll be up there in a minute, okay? But, oh gee, I hope the girls don't find out who I was dreaming about. Joanne and Leanne are the new all-girl camera crew on four-wheel drive action, and it's their first trip out in the outback. Some of you might have met them in the custom car shoots and things like that in the past. This is the first time they've been on a trip out to the Queensland outback, and they really enjoyed it too. I could tell, because every time I looked in the mirror, there they were right behind me, pretty much following everything I did. Made it hard to get away and go to the pub, I can tell you. Just outside of Quilpie, there's a beaut little hill where you get a good view of the whole town. Well, that's Quilpie, another one of the great Australian opal mining towns. One of those places where you can pick money up off the ground, if you're lucky enough anyway. But we can't afford to stick around here. We've got to go out to Colac Station, where the real four-wheel driving begins. Colac Station's not far out of town, and like just about all of this region, they've been suffering one of the longest droughts in recorded history. That means it's terribly dry, it really is, despite a little bit of rain recently. And that means one good thing, I guess, is that station owners have been throwing open their properties to people like us. They've been asking tourists to come and visit. It's a good source of income for them, and it's a great way for us to see the country too. People will try anything out here just to stay alive and stay on the land. They are some of the hardest working people you've ever met, and Duncan Watts at Colac is no exception. Mostly he had to work hard to keep me out of his machinery shed. I couldn't raid your machinery shed. There's not a lot of food left for the cattle, just a bit of spinifex grass, but there is still some water here, mostly because it rained fairly recently. And so we went straight out to have a bit of a look at it, and that involved us in the one and only water crossing of the whole trip. And yep, straight away, I'm bogged. I don't know how I managed to do it. Now, there's a bit of a trick when you fall into a rocky bog like this, and that is just to give it a little bit of backwards and forwards before you really try and gun it. If you gun it, you're just going to throw everything out and sink the truck straight away. So a little bit of rocking backwards and forwards to relocate the rocks under your wheels, and out you go. I should practice what I preach more often, shouldn't I? Boy, wasn't it dusty. But you know what? These big V8 Land Cruisers, they don't even let the dust in, not like Milo. Oh boy, I got to eat food instead of dust for a change. With all this creek country, it wasn't long before I was out mucking around. And you know what mucking around means? Getting stuck. This was a tricky one because there wasn't any way of snatching it out given the location in front of the truck. But that was good too because it meant I got a chance to use something I've been busting to try for a while. I picked up this bull bag at Opposite Lock just a little while ago, and they're a great thing, they really are. My last one lasted for years, but then I popped it on a sharp bit of welding underneath Milo. This new one's fresh out of the bag, but it just went together so easily it wasn't funny. The thing about a bull bag is you need to protect it from sharp surfaces, something I learned through experience, and so I'm using the little felt mat that was supplied on top of the bag just to keep it away from anything sharp around the diff area. Righto, Duncan! With Duncan idling the V8, it didn't take much effort at all to get the whole truck, or the whole rear of the truck, up in the air. And that meant we could give it a good packing with some rocks. There she goes. The problem here, as usual, was the departure angle. Anything with a tow bar is going to suffer, isn't it? That's great. Looking good. OK, we just need to chuck something under the wheels and we'll be right. There's certainly no shortage of rocks on Colac. We could have packed those wheels and got them 10 feet high, I reckon. One of the things about any recovery gear, especially a bull bag, is that you don't want to get too close to the vehicle when you're playing with it. Certainly not when you're letting one of these things down. So I made up this stick with a bit of coat hanger on it, and that did the trick, no problems at all. Wire and tape, you need them in the Outback, and you can bet I picked up a few coat hangers at the motel on the way up too. It's just so peaceful out here, it really is. You don't see anything at all, not a cloud in the sky, not a jet plane or anything. The Queensland Outback is probably one of the loneliest places on earth, and it's also one of the most peaceful. For good reason, I'd reckon. This is the sort of place where a man can just let his thoughts roam. And I guess that's what I was doing because I kept getting stuck. The V8s are just a lovely thing to drive, they really are. But you know what? I miss my old Milo. Even by now, I kept thinking, ooh, diff locks, ooh, big tyres, ooh, a little bit of height, better departure angle. Oh. And you know what I miss most of all? Those flaps in the side panels. How are you supposed to get fresh air into these things? What, just through the windows? Oh, come on, that's not good enough. This is Australia. It wasn't long before we were into the real rocky stuff around Colac, and that's when it pays to know where your diff centres are. That's really what driving on rocks is all about, I guess. Just a bit of an understanding of what's happening underneath the truck. Oh, that was a great day's four-wheel driving, wasn't it? But it's not over yet because we're heading up to Windorah and then on to Welford National Park. What a fantastic country. Stick around. As soon as we got near the claypan country, it was time to lock in the front hubs. Even though a lot of our time we were on well-graded roads, you just never can be sure, especially when you're ducking off-road to grab a few quick photos or something else. And in this sort of country, because it's so dry, quite often you only have to flick up a couple of rocks or something like that and you can sink. But here's another way to sink. This is one of the traps of driving anywhere off-road in Australia, but especially in channel country. You can see this clay, it's just got a bit of a glisten on it when you catch the sun on the right angle. And we know, or we can tell, that there's been rain here in the last couple of weeks because of that sort of green tinge on the horizon. And what that means is there's going to be moisture just under the surface here. It's dried off, you know, a few days of sunshine, it's dried off on the top. It's gone all nice and crisp, almost like clay actually. But underneath, there's going to be moisture. And what that means to you is that you're driving along here, you know, blissfully having a great time, and all of a sudden, whomper, bang, there she goes. You're down on the axles in the mud. It does happen. And the funny thing about this country is that it only takes half a day for it to dry out sometimes. Sometimes it takes a day, sometimes 2 days, depending on where you are. But that's why roads out here can get cut out, that's it, forget it. You can't go anywhere for a couple of days because you'll just be one big bog hole after the other. And then a few days later, bingo, off you go. You're right, you can drive anywhere. The trick to that, well, be very careful. Look for the glistening spots. Look at what other people have done. If there's big fresh ruts through there, well, don't even think about it. You know, pull back, go back to town. But of course, the biggest trick to travelling anywhere in the outback is to make sure you've got enough food and fuel and water, lots of water. You want to have 2 or 3 days up your sleeves at all times, not just for you, but for the kids and for, you know, extra even is really good. Few cans of baked beans rolling under the seat. Man, they can save your life out here, they really can.
If anyone knows about baked beans saving your life, it's got to be me. That must be why I get to travel on my own all the time, eh?
One of the things I love about the bush is in the early mornings when the sandhills are still all nice and fresh, because that's when you can read the story of the bush itself. It's terrific, you know, you should bring your kids out, show them this kind of stuff. There's a beauty here. A little kangaroo has come through here. He'd probably be about 3 foot tall, early in the morning, and he's stopped over there and he's done his business and then hopped. You can tell, you know, the hops because they're big depressions in the sand and there's no tail marks, they're about 6 feet apart. So he's done 3 or 4 big hops, come to the crest of the hill here, slowed down, had a bit of a shuffle, probably had a look around. I mean, you know, you would, it's a beautiful view. And then had a chew on a tuft of green grass up here. You can see that, he's moved around it and disturbed it. And then he's come down here and slid down the hill fairly slowly, doing, doing, doing like that. You can see that because you can see the tail mark. And of course, a kangaroo going down a hill has got to chuck his tail out fairly low to the ground to balance himself. Otherwise, he's just going to go head first and do a big roll. Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, you can see the whole story. You can imagine it. You didn't even have to see the kangaroo. And there's heaps of other stuff around here too, just like that. The kids are going to love it. I mean, look at this, for real bushcraft. I can tell, looking at this, that there's been a big hairy fella come up here this morning, and just looking at those prints, I know that he had at least 2 serves of bacon and eggs.
Amazing, isn't it, eh? All that just from a couple of boot marks. Oh, well, there were some amazing things on that sand dune, though, there really was. Fuel prices aren't real good out here, they never were. But you get that, and it's well worth it really is. It wasn't long before we were in Windorah. Now, Windorah is a great place, even for someone like me who has a little bit of trouble with the local constabulary from time to time.
Hey, let me out! Oh,
Someone must have told the local coppers about my cooking, I reckon. Just outside of Windorah, you've got the mighty Cooper, and this is some of the best camping and fishing in Australia, it really is. It's a typical outback river. I lost the girls though.
Geez, they got some buttons, these things. That should be it. I think I've switched it off. Hope so. Straight. I wonder where they are. I don't know, leave them for 5 minutes and look at this. Here they are.
Didn't we leave you back at the police station, Roothy?
Yeah. They let me out because they knew someone would have to look after you lot. But look at you.
Well, I mean, you know, we've learned all our work habits from you anyway.
Oh, that's not right, Joe.
I think your camera still might be on.
Oh, dear.
After a nice little stay on the Cooper, we decided to head over to Welford National Park. Now, the roads are long and dry and flat out here, so there's plenty of dust. There's usually a few corrugations too, but this time it had been graded in recent memory and it wasn't bad at all. We were making good pace along here too. It's terrific country for travelling, it really is. Just when you think you've seen it all, it changes a little bit. The sandhills get closer to the road, the mirages move further away. I don't know, there's just something about the outback that's magical, especially when you're taking it all in a rented 4-wheel drive that's completely dust-free. One of these days I might find the air conditioning button too. I love Gidgee country. Gidgee and mulga are fantastic trees, they really are. Gidgee's the one that you see usually used for stockyards and letterbox posts and fences, mallee gates, well that's what we call them in South Australia, all that sort of stuff. It's a real tough, wiry timber, resists the ants like you wouldn't believe, even the new age ones that eat aluminium, and it makes great firewood too. Now we were heading over to Carrisbrook, where the owner, Charlie, was going to show us around the place. He is one of the best outback guides I've ever met. He's lived on the property all his life and he just knew it inside and out, he really did. He's implemented all sorts of different farming techniques over the year too, all aimed at water conservation and stuff like that. He really knew his plants, his animals and his bush too. I learned so much just talking to him, it wasn't funny. Normally I'm not that interested in the natural side of the outback, I guess, but with Charlie along to point things out, it just opened up a whole new bunch of doors. You can stay out at Carrisbrook too. Just give them a ring. The contact's up the back of the DVD here, and they'll really look after you. They've got all sorts of accommodation out there too. They even do school tours. Well worth it if you get Charlie to explain what's going on. Now there was plenty of spin effects around the property, and that's another one of the tricks to bush driving. Don't ever leave the vehicle sitting in the spin effects. Go through it and keep going. That's because, of course, you've got a hot exhaust system under there. You'll turn around and the car will be gone.
Wow, Carrisbrook Station. You know, people just don't associate Channel Country with this sort of elevation and these great big plateaus and everything, and the sheer colours of this country. It's just fantastic. Well, I enjoyed our four-wheel driving to get up here on top of the hill. Now let's go and find some more on the way down.
Jo was under strict instructions just to follow my wheels, and this was her first hit in low range. You know what? She did really good at it. Unfortunately, she did a bit better than me. Oh, you get that. Not to worry.
I've lost the girls somewhere, I don't know where, and they'll never get in here anyway. It's impossible. Look what I've done. I was just chundering down the track there and took a big dive into this ditch and... Oh, hang on. What's this? Hey!
Hey, Roothy!
How did you guys get down here?
I just put it in full drive and came down the hill easy.
Settle down. It's not that easy. It was very hard bit of four-wheel driving, that.
Looks like you need a snatch there, Root.
Oh, now you're here. Now you're here. I reckon you better give me a hand, eh? We'll get out of this one together.
Sounds good.
Oh boy, just what I need. A couple of girls laughing at me. I get that enough at home just with one big girl. Mind you, I was really glad they were there because it was the middle of the day, it was pretty hot, and it looked like a bit of digging before I got that Troopy out.
Hey Jo, you ready to go?
Yep, ready when you are.
Yeah, I think second gear, low range should just about do it.
Yep, sounds good.
Now this was Jo's first ever go at snatching someone out, and look at that, perfect. Bit of a worry, isn't it, really? The girls just took to four-wheel driving like ducks to water, they really did. And not only that, it really got them excited too. That and the Outback, you know, it's something very special, and the only way to see it's with a four-wheel drive. I guess that's why we love what we do, isn't it? And I love doing stuff like this, I really do. I enjoyed driving all around the back of Carrisbrook. There was so many places to go, it wasn't funny. And that range country, that's just something else again. Wasn't long before that day was over though too. But you know what? At the end of every one of our rush days through the Queensland Outback, I had this terrific feeling of just feeling good about myself. That's what the Outback does to you.
Alan Gray, telephone call 101. Alan Gray.
Yes, can I help you?
Oh, g'day, is that you, Alan?
Oh, yeah, g'day, John.
How are you, mate?
Wondering, not bad, thanks. I was wondering when I was going to hear from you.
Yeah, look, I've been having a bit of trouble getting range, to be honest. We're just a kilometre or so out of Quilpie, and I've got a bit of range here for some strange reason, so... I thought I'd better ring in, see how you're getting along.
Yeah, okay, well, we've pulled the motor down, haven't cleaned it up thoroughly yet, but had a good look at it. And I watched the video of it last time with it blowing smoke all over the place, and we're lucky we found a reason for it. The ring in number 2 piston, the compression ring was gone, and that was causing it to blow oil everywhere.
So did the ring actually did it break, or did it just sort of lose tension?
No, it was broken in about 6 pieces, but it had been flapping around for quite some time pumping oil, and It's worn to probably 1/2 mil thick. It's one of the most worn top rings I've ever seen, and it's damaged the piston. But as you know, sometimes they go up beside the piston and wreck the cylinder, but there's been no damage like that at all, thankfully.
Well, that's really lucky.
It did, Struth, probably 1400 k's after it started running on 3 cylinders.
Yeah, it looks a bit like that. The rings, John, on the other pistons, the top rings are very badly worn side on, which to me indicates a lot of dirt in the motor in the early stages. The rings, if they've got dirt in them, generally a bit matted on the outside, but these are now shiny, which makes me think that recently the maintenance has been better than what it was earlier.
You know, that's amazing, Al, because I've always thought most of the damage happened to this motor when I first fitted it about 10, 11 years ago, because I did a trip across the Simpson with a busted air tube. So it sucked 500 k's worth of sand. Pretty neat sand too in places. There wasn't a lot of air in it. So yeah, I think you've read that beautifully. Ever since I've had it, it's been well serviced and everything. But prior to that, it was a dump truck engine, so I probably just copped a caning.
The top surface of the engine block needs surfacing because the head gasket's been leaking, not seriously, but leaking. So when we put sleeves, pistons and rings in it, we'll surface the block beforehand to make a better seal up top there.
So we're going to re-sleeve it to original piston size? Back
to standard. Oh yeah, new pistons as well. There's been some quite damage because the rings are worn side on. It's interesting to note that with the BT motor, with the turbo, that they have much heavier gudgeons in them, so people who fit turbos aftermarket, they just need to watch that because the gudgeons do break on them sometimes, but on yours they're massive.
It's totally different to a 3B, isn't it, in every sense?
Oh, much more improved motor. The block is going to come up really good when we get it back together.
Oh, great. And we're going to get it balanced as planned?
Yeah, I think probably balancing will add 40% of 40% life to the motor from what I've seen in my racing experience. Balancing is a brilliant idea.
So when you say 40%, you mean 40% to the life?
Life of the motor, yeah.
Unreal, yeah. No, that's terrific.
The cylinder head, it's a direct injection engine, of course. Cylinder head, we'll have a look at the valves, but the head itself looks good, and of course it'll be lightly surfaced when we put it back.
You know, a lot of people get scared about grey Toyota engines, but in actual fact, I mean, this is a grey motor, and yet...
You know, you've got everything for it. It's fantastic.
Well, we had a look at the bearings on it, the big end bearings and main bearings, and that indicates to me that the oil has been changed and filtered correctly. The filters and oil are very important on a diesel. If you can keep the air clean and oil clean, the motors will last a lot longer. The injectors will need to be replaced. Just a rough calculation, in 100,000 kilometres the injectors pulse roughly 5 million times, so at 100,000 they've got to be worn, so we'll replace those. It's direct injection. The injector pump, that needs to be checked to make sure that the volume is equal and that the timing's right.
Oh, look, that's terrific. This thing's going to hum.
It'll get it back, isn't it?
It'll go forever, buddy. One other thing I just happened to mention, I picked the clutch up and I listened to your DVD, and there's only you and I think alike about the way that you should treat the gearbox. I mean, people really do damage gearboxes by relying on synchro mesh. The way you explained it very carefully, just feed those gears in and the clutch shows up as being almost brand new. On your vehicle, the cushion springs are good, the torsion springs are good, the linings are good, and the whole thing looks like it's been cared for. You know, there's no hot spots on the flywheel, and that pays back to what you said on that DVD. It really makes sense that the clutches should never really wear out when they're treated nicely.
You know, I mean, coming from you, Al, that's a complete compliment, mate. I'm so pleased to hear that.
Good on you, mate. Well, I'll give you
a ring in a week or so. Probably be back in range by then.
Yeah, all right, buddy. Look after yourself. Take care.
Thanks very much, Al.
And look, mate, that's fantastic. It's good to know Milo's in good hands, mate. That's awesome.
Good to talk to you.
Thanks, Al.
Okay, bye.
There's nothing like a sunrise in the bush when you can see the whole horizon for miles around and watch the sky change colours as the sun comes up. And you know what makes it even better? Leanne's out there filming it. I'm still in bed. Yeah, beauty. Hope the handbrake's got the lawn mowed before I get home too. This is the back road through to Longreach, and I was in for a bit of a surprise. It's been a while since I travelled this road, probably only a year or two though, and things have changed.
We just came through Welford and hooked up at Jundar there. We're on our way to Longreach. Now, I've travelled on this sort of Windorah to Longreach road heaps of times over the years. I don't know how many, probably a couple of dozen. But something's changed. It's sealed now, and for the first time, I've noticed the scenery over here. We're about 180 k's out of Longreach, and there's this beautiful ridge country all the way through. I've never seen it before because I've been bouncing along on the old corrugated roads, hanging on to bits of Milo as we went, sort of thing. I think it's fantastic, I really do. I mean, you know how much I love our country. I never get over that. And it always blows me away that wherever you go, there's pockets of brilliance like this. Absolutely superb. I know people knock, you know, the sealing of our bush roads a lot and all the rest of it. They go, oh gee, it's just going to turn it into a big version of the city. But that's not true. What it does is it opens up access for all of us because we're the people with four-wheel drives. So we can get somewhere like this, really interesting, and then get off the road and have a good look. What a fantastic country we live in.
It's a country with a lot of long straights too, isn't it? Even out here, you've got to watch these ridges because they tend to sneak up on you and you can never be quite sure what's coming the other way. In fact, in a lot of ways, it used to be easier when it was all dirt. At least you got to see the other guy's dust cloud before you saw him. Travelling out to Welford means plenty of long, dusty roads, and it meant ducking back through town too. But that's okay. Hey, there's always a bottle shop. Got to stock up on some props, haven't we? Try getting that past your accountant. I know I'm having trouble getting it past mine at the moment. Come on, Weasel. You can pass a six-pack of beer. Winton's one of the most glorious little country towns on earth. It's almost as if a couple of 100 years just bypassed it completely, I reckon. And you know what? They are so switched on. They're so proud of their town. Just like the people over at Longreach, actually. They love their town too. That's what you find in the bush, real pride.
Our producer Joanne said I had to do a bush mechanic segment. Well, that's fine, you know, but I'm driving a hire truck and so are they. Nothing's gone wrong with these things. And I thought about it for a while and I thought, well, hang on a minute. In the bush, it's not the hire company's responsibility, is it, to look after you? It's yours. It's still yours. It always will be yours, no matter whose vehicle you take, even if it's your best mate's. So, at the end of the day, there's a few things you need to know. First thing, make sure you've got a handbook. The sergeant's trucks come with the handbook in the glove box in a little folder. You need the handbook because it tells you all sorts of things. It tells you how to operate all the switches and buttons if you're not used to that particular model. And every truck's different, even, you know, Toyotas that I've been driving forever, they're all a little bit different. It tells you where the jack is and where the spare wheel removing tools are, things like that. Well, you need to know that too, don't you? Because that's the first thing you check after you've checked it's got a handbook before you even leave the hire company's yard. Go and make sure it's got a jack, make sure it's got the tools, the basic tools, and then, if I was you, and I mean, I know I did this before I left home, I run that spanner over the wheels because I want to make sure that nobody did the wheel studs up with a rattle gun or something. If they do that, you get stuck in the middle of nowhere. You could do a perish just because you can't get the wheel studs undone. Still your responsibility, isn't it? Especially if you're taking the family along. So that's the first thing you want to check, that the car is complete and it has everything you can think of that you'll need. Chuck in a few things of your own if you can, depends if you've flown out or not, I guess. Make sure you've got a pressure gauge. Pressure gauge fits in your pocket, it's not very big. You need that because it's going to come with the tyres pumped up fairly high. They do that because people overload hire trucks. Well, the first thing you might want to do is let them down to something reasonable for your sort of road use, depending on the weight you've got. And because we understand tyre pressures, us four-wheel drivers, you can then drop them even lower when it's time to do some sand. Now, it's kind of lovely if you've got a compressor to blow them back up again in that situation, but at least you could knock, you know, the top 5 to 10 pounds off to allow the vehicle to get through. And of course, in some situations, that'll save your neck. And that's what it's all about, guys. Even though it's a hire car, even though it says the breakdown assist number here on the windscreen, no use to if you haven't got phone range. So you make sure you check your vehicle. Check the oil, check the water. Just do that every couple of days. New vehicles are pretty good. The biggest check in the bush is to look underneath and see if it's leaking anything, any oil's coming out, anything like that. Do that a couple of times a day and you can rest assured that the truck will get you home. I tell you what, I like these new V8s. I might take it home. I might take the motor out of it and stick it in Milo. I didn't say that.
Oh, they are a sweet thing to drive though. That's another advantage to hiring a vehicle, isn't it? You get to play with something different, get to use it like it was yours.
Whoa, well there you go, that's the Channel Country. Now we've done thousands of kilometres in our little whirlwind trip around here, and now, well, we're back at Winton, which is the heart of the Outback, and I'm out on Windermere, about 10 k's out, where they've got some butte camping and stuff. And that's kind of what I figured on doing for a couple of days, just watching the sun come up and the sun go down. Oh, here's Andrew and Emma now, our hosts out on Windermere. How you going, guys?
G'day, Roothy.
Hey, where's the Hilux?
Oh, we've heard about you and four-wheel drives, Roothy.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Hey, listen, do you mind if I just camp up over here somewhere in this paddock? Would that be all right?
Yeah, no worries. Watch out for Miss Piggy, though.
No, I left her at home.
No, the family pet.
We're winding down now. We're at Windermere Station, and I reckon the girls have deserved something special, so I'm going to cook them up some of my hokey pokey noodles. Hokey pokey noodles. Okay, I've got a jar of pitted olives here, and because they come in olive oil, these ones do anyway, I'm going to use that as a base for the hokey pokeys. Put some in there. Whoops, a couple of olives went in. That's all right. Now we've just put some onions in there that I chopped up earlier on, mostly because I hate crying on camera. So we've got the onions sizzling away now. A bit of garlic in a tube. Can't beat it for camping. It's awesome stuff. And some chilli, probably about the same. There we go. Just let that fry up, and while that's frying, I'm just going to grab some bacon. I'm just going to chop that up. This table's a bit rickety, isn't it? Well, you would be too if you'd done as much service as this thing has. Okay, and there goes our onion with a bit of chilli and garlic. In goes the bacon. These are little baby capsicum. Let's chop some of those up. You girls been using my knife for something. It's gone all blunt. How much capsicum to put in? Well, a couple of handfuls. I just went and found the best, freshest looking green thing they had, which happened to be broccoli. Just use the little bits. Don't let the kids see and you'll be just right. And mushrooms. Gee, I'm lazy. Okay. Give that a bit of a turn. All in the same pan. And now, we'll just give that a few minutes to cook. The handbrake pinched the lid off my pan. Crushed tomato. Can't go wrong with tomato. Oyster sauce. There we go, nice big dob of the old oyster sauce. You know what this is, don't you? It's what you have on your toast in the mornings. It's marmalade. Not too much, all right? We don't want to kill this. A tablespoon, okay? And some olives. Give it a good old stir. Give that a second to cook. There we go. And here they are. Now you probably use these at home, I don't know, but these are Hokkien noodles, and Hokkien noodles are like pre-cooked noodles, you know. They've got a really nice flavour all on their own, but the best thing about them is if you're camping, you can keep a couple of bags of these in your fridge, dead easy, you know, can rattle around with the beer and the bacon, and you can use them pretty much straight out of the packet. Look at that, one slab of noodles, and there we go. Hokey pokey. Why hokey pokey? Because of the Hokkien noodles. You guessed that, didn't you?
Back to the Outback. There's nothing like it. You know, if you really want to have a good rest, you need to go right out into the Outback. And there's not much better than Queensland's Outback for that. Oh, I love this place. Welcome to Roothy's Ruthless Tales. Go on, grab a slice of fair dinkum, Australia. Get your dose of Roothy and put a smile on your dial.